I still remember the way the diamond caught the sunlight. It was a crisp fall afternoon, mid-October, leaves crunching beneath our feet as Ethan led me through the park where we first met. I thought he was just being sentimental, maybe romantic, but then he dropped to one knee on the old wooden bridge and opened a little velvet box. The world stopped, the noise faded, and in that quiet moment, the man I had loved for almost 8 years asked me to marry him. Cried. I laughed. I couldn't stop looking at the ring, at him, at this future we were finally stepping into. We'd been through college together, first jobs, a long-distance phase, even the pandemic. And somehow we always found our way back to each other. So I said yes. Of course I said yes. Our families were thrilled, especially mine. My mom hugged me so tight I thought I'd crack. My dad gave Ethan that quiet nod of approval like he was passing me off with pride. And Taylor, my younger sister. She squealed with excitement. She posted our engagement photo before I even had the chance. My sister is getting married. Ring revolving hearts, can't wait to be your maid of honor. We weren't just sisters, we were best friends. Or so I thought. She helped me pick dress styles on Pinterest. Came to cake tastings. Giggled with me over honeymoon ideas. She even helped Ethan plan a surprise engagement dinner with our friends. At least that's what I believed. Looking back, there were moments, strange ones, when she insisted on helping Ethan pick a tuxedo, alone. When I caught them sharing looks at the engagement party. That one time she made a comment about how some people settle too young, then quickly laughed it off. But love makes you blind, and trust makes you deaf to red flags. So I didn't ask questions. I didn't dig. I didn't want to see anything bad. I was too caught up in the glow of it all, planning color palettes, counting days until I became Mrs. Evans, building a Pinterest-perfect wedding and life. If you had told me then that less than 3 months later, my ring would be off my finger, my fiancé in my sister's arms, and my entire family pretending it was normal, I would have laughed in your face. But that's the thing about betrayal. It never walks in loudly. It tiptoes in wearing your sister's perfume. It started small, so small I almost convinced myself I imagined it. Taylor began texting Ethan more often. Just helping him with surprise stuff for you, she'd chirp, waving her phone like it was some badge of honor. At first I thought it was sweet. My sister helping my fiancé plan things behind the scenes. But over time it stopped feeling thoughtful and started feeling secretive. One evening I walked into the living room to find them sitting side by side on the couch. Ethan's phone was in Taylor's hands. They both laughed, too hard, too quickly, like they were guilty of something and trying to mask it with noise. When I asked what was so funny, Taylor just said, "Inside joke," and turned the screen away. Inside joke. Between my sister and my fiancé. I let it slide. Told myself I was being paranoid. After all, they were family. Right. But then Ethan started pulling away. Late replies. Distant eyes. Dinners that turned into silence. I asked if everything was okay and he'd say, "Just work stuff," or "I'm tired." But he wasn't tired when Taylor came over. He'd light up. He'd actually smile. I remember the night I found her hoodie in his car. "Taylor left it when we all went for coffee," he explained casually, but I knew for a fact I hadn't been on that coffee run. Still I nodded. Pretended it didn't eat me alive. Because the alternative, that something might be happening between them, felt too horrible to name. Then came the weekend retreat we'd planned with friends. Ethan bailed last minute, said work needed him. Taylor also backed out, claiming she was feeling under the weather. They both posted from the same rooftop bar that night. Not together. Never together in the same frame. But if you knew the view, the skyline, the bar stools, it was clear. They were there. Together. Lying. That night something cracked in me. But instead of confronting them, I curled up in bed and scrolled through our old photos. Ethan and me at the beach, laughing under fireworks, kissing in front of the Christmas tree. I clung to those images like proof that what I was feeling couldn't be true. Because if it was true, then everything I believed in, love, trust, family, would collapse. And I wasn't ready for that. Not yet. The day Ethan ended, it was so ordinary. It still haunts me. We were sitting in the kitchen. I was making tea, wearing one of his old sweatshirts, something that used to feel like love but now just felt heavy. He was scrolling through his phone, unusually quiet, until he finally said, "Liv, we need to talk." That sentence, that tone, that pause. My hands went cold before the kettle even whistled. I sat across from him, heart thudding, waiting for him to say something, anything that would make sense. But what he said next shattered me. "I've been thinking, blah, and I don't think we're right for each other anymore." No warning, no build-up, just a clean slice across the life we had built. And blinked. What? He couldn't even look at me. "You're amazing. You really are. But I don't think I'm the one who can make you happy long-term." I felt like I was watching a movie where I already knew the ending but still hoped the characters would make a different choice. "What's really going on, Ethan?" I asked, my voice flat. He shook his head. "I just need space. I've been feeling lost. Like I'm living someone else's life." That was his excuse. No mention of Taylor. No mention of the hoodie. A bar. Private laughs. A space. I didn't scream. Didn't throw things. I just sat there nodding numb. Because somewhere deep down, I already knew this had nothing to do with space or soul-searching. I packed a small bag and left that night. And when I walked past the photo on our entryway wall, him kissing my cheek, me mid-laugh, I felt like I was seeing strangers. Like we had never actually been real. The next few days were a blur. I stayed with a friend. I cried quietly, like I didn't want to wake the grief. I kept checking my phone, thinking maybe Taylor would reach out. Maybe she'd ask if I was okay. But she didn't. Not a single word. Then one morning I opened Instagram. Taylor. New post. A selfie with Ethan. The caption. "Some love stories begin at the wrong time, but they always find their way." Dizzy. Froze. I refreshed the page. Again and again. Hoping it was a prank. Some kind of awful joke. It wasn't. My sister. My fiancé. Together. And just like that, every unanswered question made sense. The hoodie. The glances. A bar. Jokes. The late-night text. It had never been about space. It had been about them. And I had been the collateral damage in their love story. You always think betrayal will come with fireworks. A screaming match. A dramatic scene. But mine came with a soft tap. My finger refreshing a screen. Over and over again. As if the image might change. As if the world might put itself back together if I just blinked enough. But it didn't. There they were. Taylor and Ethan. Smiling. Hands interlocked. His hoodie on her. Her head on his shoulder like she had earned the right to be there. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I wanted to scream, call her, demand an explanation. But I didn't. Because even the silence had spoken. Loudly. She didn't just steal my fiancé. She blocked me on everything. Instagram. Facebook. Even Venmo. Like my grief was an inconvenience she needed to delete. No warning. No apology. Not even the courage to face me. It was my best friend, Claire, who called me an hour later, voice shaking. "Liv, have you seen Taylor's post?" Could barely speak. "Yeah." Claire cursed under her breath. "I don't understand how your family's okay with this." That's when it hit me. My family. Called my mom. Straight to voicemail. Dad. Then Claire sent me a screenshot. My mom had commented on the post. "Beautiful couple. So happy for you both, 2 hearts." I stared at those words like they were acid. They weren't just ignoring it. They were celebrating it. My own parents had decided that pretending this wasn't betrayal was easier than confronting it. And just like that, I was orphaned. Not legally. Not physically. But emotionally. Spiritually. Completely. I spent the rest of that night pacing. Crying. Laughing bitterly. I thought about every time I defended Taylor. Every time I lent her money. Covered for her. Took the fall. Gave her my hand-me-downs. Gave her my time. My trust. I gave her everything. And when it was finally my turn to be happy, she reached out and took that too. But the part that cut deepest. She didn't just take him. She took every chance I had to process the pain. Because when someone you love betrays you and then blocks you out of their life entirely, you don't get closure. You get silence. And silence, my God. Silence screams. You want to believe your family will have your back. That blood means loyalty. That when someone breaks your heart, they'll be the ones standing behind you, ready to pick up the pieces. But what I learned is this. Sometimes blood just means you're easier to betray. After the post, I waited for anyone to call. My mom, my dad, even my cousin Lindsay, who always had something to say about everyone else's drama. But my phone stayed quiet. Painfully, willfully quiet. 3 days after the post went up, I finally cracked. Called my mom. She picked up on the second ring. "Olivia," she said, like my name was an inconvenience. "I was going to call you." "Were you?" "Because it had been 72 hours since your younger daughter paraded around with the man I was supposed to marry. I just didn't know what to say," she continued. "We didn't want to take sides." I nearly dropped the phone. "Sides?" I repeated. "Mom, she stole my fiancé. This isn't a board game. There aren't teams here, there's just right and evil." She sighed. That long, disappointed in me sigh she used to reserve for when I didn't clean my room as a teenager. "Honey, you and Ethan had already broken up. Because they were sneaking around." Shouted. "Silence. We don't know that," she said softly. "And Taylor told us she waited. That she didn't mean for this to happen, but sometimes love just happens." I swear I felt my soul leave my body in that moment. "So you believe her?" Yes. Another pause. "I'm not saying anyone was perfect, Olivia. But holding on to anger won't heal you." It was like talking to a wall that had my mother's face painted on it. No remorse. No outrage. No maternal instinct to protect the daughter who was bleeding in front of her. Just fake neutrality. "Let's all move forward." I didn't bother calling my dad. I already knew where he stood, where they all stood. At Taylor's side. Smiling for engagement photos. Picking wedding colors. Pretending their oldest daughter never existed. It was like I had been erased from my own life. My memories replaced. My seat at the dinner table quietly removed. My name whispered with discomfort, if at all. I spent that night alone on my couch, tears soaking through a hoodie I hadn't had the strength to return. And for the first time since it all began, a new thought formed. If they don't see the damage they've done, then maybe it's time I stop waiting for an apology and become the lesson instead. I didn't think they could hurt me any more than they already had. I was wrong. 2 months after the betrayal, just when my wounds had barely begun to scab over, I got a text from a coworker I hadn't spoken to in weeks. Are you okay?" Attached was a screenshot. Taylor and Ethan were engaged. Officially. Publicly. Loudly. The photo was disgusting in how perfect it tried to be. Beach sunset. Ethan on one knee. Taylor crying with one hand over her mouth, the other extended for the ring. My ring. Not the same setting, sure. But the same style. Same cut. Same design I had pointed out years ago when Ethan asked me what I'd want someday. She didn't even have the decency to pick something different. I stared at the caption. He asked. Said yes. Forever starts now, ring sparkles, #soulmates, #menttobe. I sat there frozen watching the comments pour in. My aunt. You two were always meant to find each other, two hearts. A neighbor. Can't wait to celebrate this perfect couple. My mother. So happy for my baby girl. She deserves the world. I couldn't breathe. No one thought this was strange. Or maybe they did. Maybe they just didn't care. Because it's easier to celebrate a shiny love story than acknowledge the blood on the floor behind it. And the worst part. They sent me an invite. Not a call. Not a message. Not even a note of apology. Just a glossy, oversized envelope in the mail 2 weeks later. Taylor and Ethan cordially invite you. I laughed. Loud. For the first time in months. Not because it was funny. Because it was insulting. It was like they were daring me to show up. to swallow my pride and clap for their stolen fairy tale. I threw the invitation on the counter and stared at it for a long time. Not with heartbreak, not with pain, but with clarity. They thought I was still the same Olivia. Quiet, accommodating, unwilling to rock the boat. But what they didn't know was this. I had been burning in silence. And now I was learning how to use the ashes. After the invitation, something inside me finally broke. But not in the way they expected. They thought I'd spiral. That I'd sob for days. That I'd either cave and show up to their charade with a fake smile. Or stay home quietly and disappear like a ghost, too ashamed to face the spotlight they stole from me. But grief has stages. And I'd spent too long in sorrow. Now I was standing in rage. Not the loud, screaming kind, but the cold, sharp kind that builds inside your spine and straightens your back. I didn't cry. Pack. Deleted social media first. Blocked Taylor. Blocked Ethan. Even blocked my mother. Because I realized they weren't going to change. They had rewritten the story to paint me as jealous, dramatic, bitter. I could feel it in the silence. They needed me to play the villain in their rom-com, to justify their happy ending. But I wasn't going to play the part they'd cast me in. I found a new apartment the following week. Smaller, quieter, mine. I cut off ties with every relative who congratulated them. Every "you need to forgive." Every "time heals all." Every "you'll find someone too someday." Gone. Because they weren't offering comfort. They were offering excuses for betrayal. And betrayal doesn't deserve peace offerings. Deserves distance. I started therapy. I got back into running. I poured myself into my career like my life depended on it because in some ways it did. And slowly, painfully, I began to remember who I was before Ethan. Before Taylor's shadow. Before my family turned love into a transaction. I wasn't weak. I wasn't disposable. And I sure as hell wasn't going to stay silent while they danced over my name. So when Ethan's mother, yes, his mother, called me out of the blue one week before the wedding, and said with ice in her voice, "You didn't deserve what they did. I want to be there with you when they see what they've lost." I didn't say no. I just smiled. Because the universe was about to hand me something my family had stolen a long time ago. Moment. And this time, I would not be sitting quietly in the back. I hadn't heard from Ethan's mom, Angela, since the breakup. At first, I assumed she had chosen her son's side. Why wouldn't she? Blood runs thick, even when it's laced with betrayal. So when I saw her name light up my phone, my stomach dropped. I let it ring. 3 times. But something inside me said, "Pick up." "Olivia." Her voice was tight but not unkind. "I hope this isn't too forward. I only just found out. About Taylor. About the wedding. About everything." I didn't respond at first. I didn't trust it. Not yet. Then she said something that cut through the numbness. "I want you to know, what Ethan did and what your sister did is unforgivable. And if you think I'm going to stand at that altar and pretend this is okay, you're wrong." That's when I realized. She wasn't calling as Ethan's mother. She was calling as a woman who knew betrayal. She had loved me like a daughter. We used to bake together, laugh about old music, share book recommendations. I remember she cried when Ethan proposed to me. Tears of joy. She always said, "You're the best thing to ever happen to him." And now, she was furious. "They mailed me the invitation like nothing ever happened," she continued. I couldn't believe it. I thought they were broken up. When I called Ethan, he brushed it off. Said things were complicated. That you weren't emotionally compatible. I told him that's because she has a soul. That's when I cried. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time someone saw me. Not as dramatic. Not as a speed bump in Taylor's love story. But as a human being who'd been wronged. Angela didn't offer platitudes. She didn't tiptoe around discomfort. She asked with full intent, "Will you go with me to the wedding?" First I laughed. Thought she was joking. But she wasn't. I want to walk in with the real woman who was supposed to be my daughter-in-law. I want Taylor to know I see her for what she is. And I want Ethan to know. I didn't raise a man to build his future on betrayal. There was a long pause. My heart was pounding. Olivia, she added gently, you don't have to say yes. But if you want to stand tall, if you want to take your moment, I'll be right beside you. I didn't say yes immediately. I didn't have to. Because deep down I already knew. I wasn't just going to show up. I was going to show them exactly who they lost. The next morning I opened my laptop, pulled up the wedding invitation, and stared at the date. Saturday 4 p.m. Country club venue. Outdoor ceremony. Formal attire. It was 3 days away. I didn't feel dread. I didn't feel fear. Felt precision. Angela and I talked that evening over tea at a quiet cafe. She wore sunglasses and a scarf like she was plotting a heist. Maybe she was. Poetic one. I've already RSVP'd yes, she said with a smirk. But I didn't say anything about a +1. We laughed. The kind of laugh that doesn't rise from joy, but from justice forming in real time. That night, I went home and pulled out the dusty garment bag at the back of my closet. The dress, the one I had picked for my engagement dinner with Ethan, the one I never got to wear. Deep emerald green. Fitted. Classy. Powerful. I tried it on. Still fit. But this time, the woman in the mirror didn't look like a bride-to-be. She looked like a woman who walked through hell and came back with fire in her eyes. I booked a hair appointment. Polished my heels. I even had my nails done in the exact shade Taylor always claimed looked better on her. Petty. Maybe. But healing rarely wears white. The day before the wedding, Angela sent me a text. They won't see it coming. Bring your grace. I'll bring the storm. I didn't reply with words. I just sent back the photo of my dress hanging from the doorframe. Caption. Let's burn polite to the ground. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration. Of dignity. Voice. Of the seat at the table they tried to erase. I wasn't crashing the wedding. I wasn't making a scene. I was showing up in the most dangerous way a woman can. Unapologetically. Composed. And finally seen. I arrived with Angela 15 minutes before the ceremony. Right on time. Not too early to be seated quietly in the back, not too late to miss our entrance. The valet took her car with a raised eyebrow. Maybe it was the tension in the air. Maybe it was the way Angela walked. Head high, jaw tight, like she wasn't there to witness a celebration but deliver a verdict. We didn't speak much on the way in. We didn't need to. Every step toward that venue felt electric. Guests were already mingling by the white linen drink tables. Champagne flutes clicked, and whispers swirled like fog. Then they saw me. And the fog froze. Mouths open. Glasses lowered. A few heads tilted like their vision couldn't be trusted. Olivia. Here. I caught eyes, faces from my past. Mutual friends, old classmates, even my own cousins. Some stared in pity, others in shock. But no one spoke. Angela clutched my arm with a calm fierceness. Let them look, she murmured. They should. We entered the main garden. Heels crunching over gravel. And I swear the music skipped for a breath when the coordinator saw us. I wore that emerald green like armor. Hair pinned perfectly. Makeup flawless but not sweet. Powerful. Unbothered. And fully aware of what I represented. Reminder. That behind Taylor's stolen spotlight was a woman they'd underestimated. One who hadn't just survived betrayal, but refined herself in it. Then came the moment I'll never forget. Taylor turned. She was standing with her bridesmaids, laughing about something, until her gaze landed on me. That smile died so fast it looked like a glitch in reality. Her lips parted. Her shoulders stiffened. One of her friends whispered something into her ear, and Taylor's eyes flared as they flicked from me to Angela, and then to Ethan, who had just stepped outside, boutonniere crooked and eyes tired. He saw us and stopped mid-stride. Blinked. Took a step forward like he didn't believe it. Angela let go of my arm and stepped toward him. Didn't expect to see me, she said, her voice even. Mom, this isn't. No, she said, cutting him off. It isn't. But you made this bed. And she motioned to me without turning. She doesn't owe you an ounce of silence. You could have heard a leaf drop. Ethan looked like he'd been sucker punched. Taylor stormed over, her heels stabbing into the earth. You can't just show up here to ruin my day, Olivia. I looked her in the eye. Funny. That's exactly what you did to me. Only difference. I'm not hiding behind lies and hashtags. Angela raised her glass. To the real woman my son never deserved. I didn't stay for the ceremony. I didn't need to. I had already walked the aisle of their shame and left a trail of truth behind me. I didn't need to see them say, I do. Because as I walked out of that venue, past the stairs, past the frozen faces, past the woman who once called herself my sister, I had already won. And not because I ruined anything, but because I didn't. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg for anyone's side. I showed up. I stood tall. I let them see me. Not broken, not bitter, but healed enough to let their smallness echo around them. And the echoes, they grew loud. By the time I got home that night, my phone had lit up with messages. Not from my family. They were still pretending. Probably nursing a narrative about how I was jealous, or unwell, or obsessed. But from guests, from old friends, from people I hadn't spoken to in years. I had no idea that was you. I'm so sorry. You didn't deserve any of this. Everyone was whispering after you left. Taylor was fuming. It wasn't the fairy tale she thought. Your grace today. That was power. Even Ethan's cousin messaged me. Your sister didn't just steal your fiancé. She stole your story. But today you took it back. And maybe that's what hit the deepest. I didn't need revenge. I just needed to reclaim my narrative. To stop being the girl in the shadows of someone else's highlight reel. Because when you get betrayed that deeply, you don't just lose a relationship, you lose pieces of yourself. Trust. Worth. But that day, I walked in with nothing but my truth. And I walked out with myself fully intact. Taylor may have gotten the wedding, but I got something rarer. And peace isn't silent. Peace has a spine. Peace wears heels. And sometimes peace walks out just before the vows, leaving the whole room wondering, what if we backed the wrong sister? The weeks after the wedding were eerily quiet from my family's side. Not a single call. Not a single text. No questions like, are you okay? No messages like, maybe we misunderstood. And that silence. It used to hurt. But now it felt like proof. Proof that I had walked away from people who were only loyal when it was easy, when it served them. People who chose comfort over confrontation, even if it meant abandoning the daughter who'd done nothing but love too fully, too blindly. I stopped waiting for closure. Closure doesn't come wrapped in apologies. Comes when you decide the story ends differently. I didn't follow their social media anymore. I didn't ask how the wedding went, or if the cake turned out perfect, or whether Taylor wore the earrings she once borrowed from me when she had no style of her own. None of that mattered. What mattered now was me. I started going out more. Took a solo trip to Maine. Started writing again. Something I'd dropped when Ethan told me it wasn't real work. I made new friends. I reconnected with old ones. People who remembered the Olivia before she was Taylor's shadow or Ethan's emotional crutch. And for the first time in years I could breathe. Free of trying to earn love. Free of trying to keep people who never truly saw me. One day, I bumped into an old friend of Taylor's at a bookstore. She hesitated, then leaned in and whispered, "You looked incredible at the wedding, by the way. Everyone was talking about you. No one could believe how composed you were." Smiled. Real one. Because that's the thing about healing. Doesn't ask for revenge. It just becomes undeniable. You stop trying to prove you were wronged, because your peace becomes its own evidence. And when people ask me now, do you miss them? Say no. Because I never actually lost a family that day. I lost the illusion of one. And what I gained instead was myself.